right, if we wanted to take this number and we wanted to round it, and we're going to round it into several different positions. So the first one we're going to round it to is the nearest hundred. All right, so what you could think about in your mind is if you're rounding this to the nearest hundred position, then that means if you had $100 bills, how many of them would there be and what would it look like? So what you would have to do is, so that means you don't want any coins, so that means we don't want any decimals, we don't need anything behind here, and we're also not going to be able to have any tens, any fives, any ones, any of those dollar bills. So what we would end up with is we would say our choices are either going to be we're going to have $4,200 or we're going to have $4,300. Those are our options. So when we go to the hundreds position, we look behind it, and that number will tell us whether the 2 stays a 2 or whether it goes up. Since this number is 4 or below, then it's going to stay the same. So this number rounded to the 100 position would be 4,200. All right, if we went same number, and now we want to round it to the nearest tens position. So what that would mean is that we cannot have any $5 bills, we cannot have any $1 bills, we cannot have any coins. So what we would do is we would go to the tens position, which is right here, and we look at the number immediately behind it, and that's going to tell us whether we have $4,230 or $4,240. So when we round it to the nearest tens position, because this number behind it, immediately behind it, that's the only one we're worried about. Since it is 5 or higher, we're going to round this up. So this would be $4,240. All right, same number. If we wanted to round it to the nearest ones, that means that we can have dollar bills. We can have fives, tens, $100 bills, and so on, but we cannot have any coins. So when we round it to the nearest ones, that means we don't want any change in our pocket. All right, so we're gonna go to the ones position because that's what we're rounding it to. We're gonna look at the number that's immediately behind it, which is this one. And so that's gonna tell this that it needs to raise up. So if we rounded this to the nearest ones position, would be $4,239. Now we're going to round it to the nearest tenth. Now what the 10th position, you could kind of think of it like having a dime or dimes in your pocket if you want to continue with the money analogy. And what that's going to mean is that we don't want any nickels, we don't want any pennies, we don't want anything in this position right here. But what it also means is that we want one number behind the decimal and we want only one number behind the decimal. Now this one's a little bit weird because this one is a 9, and so we would look and we would say it's either going to stay a 9 or it's going to round up. And since the number immediately behind it is a 7, it's going to round it up. Well, since 9 is as high as it goes, it's going to make this become a 10. So this is going to become a 0, and then it would also increase this one right here. So the way I would round this number to the nearest tenth would be 239, and I still have to acknowledge that position, so I would say 0.0 on that one, or 4,239 and 0 tenths. Then our last one we'll do is if we want to round this guy to the nearest hundredth. So what we would do is everything to the left is all going to stay the same. What this is saying is that you want to have to the nearest penny. So all of our dollar bills, we're allowed to have hundreds, we're allowed to have tens, fives, ones, so on. We're allowed to have dimes, nickels, and even pennies, since we're rounding it to the nearest hundredth. So what we're going to do is we're going to see, is it going to be this much money and 97 cents, or is it going to be at 98 cents? And on this one, since this is a 4, the number immediately behind it is a 4, then that's going to stay the same as 7. So it would be 4,238 and 97 hundredths.